I've been driving trucks for over a decade, and I thought I'd seen it all. From the sun-kissed highways of California to the snowy roads of Maine, I've hauled my fair share of cargo across this great country. But nothing could have prepared me for the terror that awaited me on that fateful night. It started like any other run. I loaded up my Peterbilt 389 with a trailer full of electronics, bound for a warehouse in Dallas. The sun was setting as I pulled out of the terminal, casting a golden glow over the landscape. I settled in for the long haul, sipping coffee and listening to the CB radio chatter. As the hours ticked by, the sun dipped below the horizon and the darkness closed in. I cruised down I-40, the only sound being the hum of my engine and the soft crackle of the radio. I was making good time, and I figured I'd be in Dallas by dawn. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was just a hitchhiker, but as I got closer, I realized it was a woman in a long, tattered coat. She was standing on the side of the road, staring straight ahead. I slowed down, feeling a shiver run down my spine. There was something off about her. As I passed her, I glanced in the rearview mirror. She wasn't there. I spun around, thinking maybe she got in the truck without me noticing, but I was alone. I shook my head, chiding myself for being spooked. It was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, I heard a faint whisper in my ear. "You shouldn't have passed me by." I spun around again, and this time, I saw her. She was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes black as coal, her smile twisted and sinister. I slammed on the brakes, and the truck skidded to a stop. I was frozen in terror, unable to move or speak. And then, everything went black. When I came to, I was alone in the truck, parked on the side of the road. The woman was gone, but I knew I'd never forget the horror of that moment. I started the truck and got back on the road, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the woman's twisted smile staring back at me. As I drove, the CB radio crackled to life. A voice, low and raspy, spoke a single word: "Welcome." I spun the dial, trying to find a different channel, but the voice followed me, echoing in my ears. I knew then that I was in for a long, terrifying night. The hours ticked by, and the darkness seemed to press in around me. I saw shadowy figures darting across the road, and I heard strange noises in the distance. I was starting to lose my grip on reality. And then, I saw her again. This time she was standing in the middle of the road, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. I swerved to avoid her, but she vanished into thin air. I pulled over to the side of the road, my heart racing. I knew I had to get out of there, but my legs wouldn't move. That's when I heard the knock on the door. It was a slow, deliberate knock, like someone was trying to get my attention. I hesitated for a moment, and then I opened the door. There was no one there. But then, I saw the hand. It was a bony, pale hand, reaching out from the darkness. I screamed as it grabbed my arm, pulling me out of the truck. I was dragged across the pavement, my feet scraping against the asphalt. I saw the woman's twisted face staring back at me, her eyes burning with an evil intensity. And then, everything went black again. When I came to, I was lying in a ditch, my head throbbing with pain. The truck was gone, and I was alone in the darkness. I stumbled to my feet, trying to get my bearings. I was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but fields and forests. I started walking, trying to find my way back to civilization. But as I walked, I realized that I was being herded. The shadowy figures were closing in around me, pushing me towards some unknown destination. I stumbled through the darkness, my heart racing with fear. I knew I was being led to some terrible fate, and I couldn't escape. And then, I saw the lights. They were faint at first, but they grew brighter as I walked. I stumbled towards them, hoping to find safety. It was a slow, deliberate knock, like someone was trying to get my attention. I hesitated for a moment, and then I opened the door. There was no one there. But then, I saw the hand. It was a bony, pale hand, reaching out from the darkness. I screamed as it grabbed my arm, pulling me out of the truck. I was dragged across the pavement, my feet scraping against the asphalt. I saw the woman's twisted face staring back at me, her eyes burning with an evil intensity. And then, everything went black again. When I came to, I was lying in a ditch, my head throbbing with pain. The truck was gone, and I was alone in the darkness. I stumbled to my feet, trying to get my bearings. I was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but fields and forests. I started walking, trying to find my way back to civilization. But as I walked, I realized that I was being herded. The shadowy figures were closing in around me, pushing me towards some unknown destination. I stumbled through the darkness, my heart racing with fear. I knew I was being led to some terrible fate, and I couldn't escape. And then, I saw the lights. They were faint at first, but they grew brighter as I walked. I stumbled towards them, hoping to find safety. As I lay in the hospital bed, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. I kept looking around the room, expecting to see the shadowy figures lurking in the corners, but there was no one there. The doctors and nurses came and went, checking my vitals and asking me questions, but I couldn't focus on what they were saying. My mind was still on the road, still driving through the darkness. I knew I had to get out of there, had to get back on the road, but I was scared. I was scared of what I might see, of what might happen. As the days passed, I began to feel a little better. The doctors said I was making progress, that I would be able to leave soon. But I knew I wouldn't be able to leave the nightmare behind. It would follow me, haunt me, until I faced it head on. So I made a decision. I would get back on the road, would drive through the darkness and face whatever was waiting for me. I checked out of the hospital and went back to my truck. It was still parked in the same spot, waiting for me. I got in and started the engine, feeling a sense of determination wash over me. I was going to face my fears, was going to drive through the night and see what was waiting for me. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw a figure standing on the side of the road. It was the woman, her eyes black as coal, her smile twisted and sinister. I knew then that I was in for the long haul, that I would be driving through the darkness for a long time to come. But I was ready. I was ready to face whatever was waiting for me, to drive through the night and see what was on the other side. And so I drove, the headlights illuminating the dark road ahead. I drove through the night, the shadowy figures darting across the road, the strange noises echoing through the darkness. I drove through the night, and I didn't stop until the sun came up. As the sun rose, I pulled over to the side of the road, exhausted. I had driven for hours, and I still hadn't shaken the feeling of being watched. I got out of the truck and stretched my legs, looking around at the deserted landscape. That's when I saw it, a small, run-down diner in the distance. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it seemed like an oasis in the desert. I walked towards it, hoping to find some answers. As I entered the diner, I was greeted by the owner, a gruff old man with a thick beard. He looked me up and down before nodding and saying, "You're the truck driver, ain't ya?" I nodded, taking a seat at the counter. "How did you know?" He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We've been expecting you. You've been driving through the Devil's Highway, ain't ya?" I nodded again, feeling a chill run down my spine. The old man nodded. "I knew it. You've seen things, haven't ya? Things that can't be explained?" I hesitated before nodding again. The old man leaned back in his chair. "You're not the first one to come through here, and you won't be the last. But you might be the only one who can help us." I raised an eyebrow. "Help you with what?" The old man glanced around the diner nervously before leaning in close again. "We've got a problem here, a supernatural problem, and we need your help to solve it." I was taken aback. "What kind of problem?" The old man hesitated before answering. "The Devil's Highway is getting worse. The shadowy figures are getting bolder, and people are starting to disappear. We need someone to drive through the night and find out what's causing it." I shook my head. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for the job." The old man looked at me with a serious expression. "You're the only person for the job. You've already seen things that most people can't imagine. You might be the only one who can stop this." I took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll drive through the night and see what's causing the disappearances." The old man nodded, a look of determination on his face. "I knew I could count on you. Be careful, though. The Devil's Highway is full of tricks and traps. You'll need all your wits about you to make it through." I nodded, feeling a sense of trepidation. I knew what I was getting myself into, but I was determined to see it through. I spent the rest of the day preparing for my journey, stocking up on food and water, and checking my truck's maintenance. As the sun began to set, I climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. The old man came out to see me off, his eyes serious. "Be careful," he repeated, "and don't forget to keep your eyes on the road." I nodded, putting the truck in gear. As I pulled out of the diner's parking lot, I felt a sense of resolve. I was going to drive through the night, no matter what lay ahead. The hours passed slowly, the darkness seeming to press in around me. I saw shadowy figures darting across the road and heard strange noises in the distance. But I kept driving, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. And then, just as the first light of dawn was starting to creep over the horizon, I saw it. A figure standing in the middle of the road, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop just inches from the figure. And as I looked into its eyes, I knew that I had found the source of the disappearances. It was the woman, her eyes black as coal, her smile twisted and sinister. But this time she didn't vanish. This time she spoke. "Welcome," she said, her voice low and husky. "I've been waiting for you." And with that, everything went black. When I came to, I was lying in my truck, parked on the side of the road. The sun was high overhead, and the air was warm and still. I sat up, rubbing my head, trying to remember what had happened. And then I saw it. A piece of paper on the seat next to me, with a single sentence scrawled on it. "The Devil's Highway is waiting for you." I smiled, feeling a sense of closure. I had faced my fears, and I had come out on top. I started the engine, putting the truck in gear. As I drove away, I knew that I would never forget the terror of the Devil's Highway. But I also knew that I would never be haunted by it again.